Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our iron truck line heading towards our recently made steel mill, and in this video we're going to do a bit more of housekeeping type things, taking a look at our cities, expanding the ones that need it most, and making sure that our lines are still up to date and our bus lines are running as intended. Alright, and so as we continue letting this machines line continue to run and balance out, I believe we're still waiting for our steel mill to fully ramp up in production because the iron line does take a while for these trucks to go back and forth. But as we wait for that, we can take a look at some housekeeping things across the map, such as what we did here in Tacoma, giving it a nice extension since the target population was much higher than the current population. So we gave it a little bit of extra space to build out, and we'll also do that in some of the other towns around the map. And so I think the first city we're going to take a look at here is Lincoln. We talked about this a little bit, maybe restructuring this area to fit more with the industrial zoning that is going in this area. So maybe just a bit more straight roads so we can get something a bit more grid-like here, and then maybe this can sprawl out and be a bit more windy like these roads, since this seems to be largely residential. And I think we'll leave this plot of land alone for now. We'll just give it this little space in here and maybe a few roads in this area to expand, but that should be enough to probably get this up to 450 residents. We're obviously not aiming for the full target population, but cities that need a lot of growth, we should probably provide that at least a little bit. Alright, and we will pause while we do this, just because we have some bus routes in here that we'll have to replace, and we don't want to mess anything up. But hopefully once this is back in, we can replace these bus routes without too many problems. And we will be right back after we've made these changes. Alright, and so here's what I'm thinking we're going to do for Lincoln. So up here in our industrial area, we turned it into a lot more grids. We also expanded up into this area a little bit. It did end up being a bit more hilly than I was expecting, so we couldn't have too many grids placed through here, so we have a lot more of these like single streets running across with a few intermediate connectors sort of at the important intersections, but I think this should still fill out much better than it was before. We're able to keep our bus lines intact. We might have to come through and redo them later on in the future, but I think this area will work out just fine. And then over here, we didn't do too much expansion with the residential area, but I was thinking this area could turn into some houses that'll sort of sit above this area, so that's why the road's not connected anywhere. The elevation change is just too big in this area, so this will just sort of be like elevated streets with some houses that'll look out over the city, and I think that'll work out fine. It's not great for transportation, but it is pretty close to this bus stop that does cover most of this area. Alright, and so we'll leave Lincoln like this. We'll come back and check to see how it's filling in later on, but now we can take a look at one or two other cities. Alright, I think Roswell is a pretty good candidate for our next city to look at. We're not going to go all in on expanding the city, but you can see we're almost 2,000 below the target population. So I think what I want to do is organize this sort of island a bit better than how the city's building it currently. So we'll build some nice roads there, and then we'll probably throw in some more streets in this area, and I think that'll provide us enough growth. I know we do want to fill out this area, but I think that'll just be too much all at once. We could, but I do want to get to other cities in this video, so we'll leave this as a future project. And so with that, we'll get into reorganizing these areas, and when we're back, Roswell should have some nice new neighborhoods. Alright, and now we have our new neighborhoods built in Roswell. The largest area obviously being this island here, which is much more structured than it was previously, and I think this will look very nice once it's filled out. We can do a lot more detailing once that happens too, as we'll be able to see how much space these buildings take up. And then of course we have a few more roads in this area of Roswell. We'll see how this fills out. This space is a little bit trickier just due to the shape of it, but I do think that we can get pretty close to maximizing our space on this piece of land here. Alright, and then to finish off this video, I think we're going to finally take a look at this section of Portland and make it look nicer. We have this sort of natural grid here, and we sort of just stopped it at this point, and all this is just roads to fill space. So let's go through, make this look better, and then when we come back, we'll just take a quick look at an overview of our lines, make sure nothing is falling apart behind the scenes, and then I think that will be all for this video. Alright, and I think this is how we're going to leave Portland off. We didn't really fill it in, but I think it has a bit more structure, or the organization is a bit better than what it was doing before. So that should allow us to much more easily expand on it when the time does come that the city grows out into this section. So I think we'll leave that off here, and let's take a look at our line overviews. Alright, so let's take a look at our lines, and we'll sort by balance, and we can see our usual passenger trains making us the most money. Some cargo trains are also thrown in there. And then flipping this to the other side, we do still have this iron line losing us a lot of money. I do believe that's kind of always been the case. It looks like it is just an off year though, so that should clear out here somewhat soon. And then our second worst line right now is our new machines line, which I was hoping would start to do a little bit better. It looks like we're trending closer to breaking even. I was hoping this would be an easy money maker, but it looks like we might have to do a bit more thinking about how we're transporting these resources. But I don't really want to touch it yet until it's a bit more established and everything is balanced out. But taking a look at the next line is this boat line, and this one's a bit confusing, unless the boats just aren't traveling with a full load, which it does look like they are. So I think we'll have to maybe take a closer look at that. We'll have to double check the math, which might take a bit longer than just a quick fix here. So we'll take note of that and add that to our list of things to keep an eye on in the future. But I do think this boat line has been a work in progress for a while, just because it takes a very long time for the boats to move up and down the river. So any changes we make does take a long time to filter through. But then none of the other lines really stick out too bad. Again, I think anything that's losing us less than $1 million is really nothing to worry about. They're probably serving other portions of more profitable lines, so those losses eventually get offset farther on, usually by the end delivery where it reaches the city or some other section of the production line. But let's just do a quick check-in here before we end the video on our machines line. Let's see how our trains are running. So it looks like this one is still not ending up completely full. So I think that's part of our issues. This one didn't unload all the resources, but I think that's just because the demand isn't high enough for it to unload everything. We did have this train. Looks like it just unloaded a bunch of resources. So I'm not sure how full that one was. I think that would have been pretty helpful to see how many resources it had on it. But taking a look at our stations, it is building up fairly decent. We'll have this train come, and it looks like it's not going to even pick up enough to fill up half the train. So that's where a lot of our issues are stemming from at the moment. Again, it looks like we're running low on iron, so let's just make sure we're able to cover that. It looks like all these are traveling full or somewhat full. The issue might be coming from these trucks, but these are moving at a rate of 850. So I think we'll still give this a little bit more time, as the trucks do take a little bit, but if it doesn't get resolved in the next video or two, we might have to take a closer look at where some of our troubles are coming from here, and maybe double check our math, as again, I wasn't fully sure as to what the line rate on this train really needs to be. Alright, and so let's take a closer look at everything we've done so far in this video, and then when we come back, we'll check in on the cities we've expanded in this video and take a look at some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now that we're back, let's take a look at the cities we've expanded, and we'll start off in Lincoln. So Lincoln looks like it's slowly rebuilding the industry that we've displaced with our roads. We did get a few buildings here. I was hoping these would be more like these towers. I'm sure they'll probably upgrade over time, but it is nice seeing some of these residential buildings pop in here. We can sort of get an idea of what this will look like. We might have to do some terraforming to make this look better, maybe add some trees to hide it a little bit. But I do have high hopes for how this will look as an end result. It looks like we could have moved this road back a little bit farther, and I think we still can. But let's see what it looks like once there's a few more buildings in this area. Alright, so the next area is going to be Roswell. Nothing's really had a chance to pop in here just yet, but it looks like it's starting to fill in some more along the main road here. So I think that is showing signs of growth in this area. We just have to probably wait a little bit for it to expand into these smaller roads. And same with this other area of Roswell. It looks like we do have some new construction popping up, but none of it is on our new streets. So I think we'll hold off looking at Portland, as that will probably be the same. Nothing's probably popped in there yet. But now we can talk about some of our next steps and future projects. And so starting here in Roswell, we do have all of these new neighborhoods here. So I think we need to start looking at expanding our passenger lines in a lot of our cities again. New bus lines, maybe at least in Roswell, this might be a good candidate for a tram line. Maybe this can be a tram all the way up to the airport. That might be an option. But I think overall in all of our cities, that's something we need to take a look at. And then again with our machines line, figuring out what's going on with our resources here, and the problem could just end up being we aren't shipping enough to the cities to create enough demand. But I do think getting that figured out sooner rather than later would benefit us in the long run, so we're not just bleeding money on these lines. Alright, and so I think that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.